The Blaze Radio Network. On demand.
Hello and welcome to ILTV's Zion News on the Blaze Radio Network. Coming up in today's newscast, the United States and Israel team up against the United Nations. An Israeli mother gives birth to her 20th child. And Christmas is almost upon us, my friends, which is why a very unique tattoo shop in Jerusalem is getting a lot more visitors than usual. I'm Natasha Kirchak, here with the latest news in Israel. On the eve of a major vote at the United Nations, President Trump is suggesting that he may actually cut foreign aid to countries that vote against his decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
For all of these nations that take our money and then they vote against us at the Security Council, or they vote against us potentially at the Assembly, they take hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars and then they vote against us. Well, we're watching those votes. Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care.
Both the United States and Israel are joining together to garner the support needed to defeat this resolution. It carried massive support at the UN Security Council earlier this week until the United States used its veto power to block it full stop. If passed at the General Assembly today, it wouldn't be legally binding, but would certainly be a big blow to both the U.S. and Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is lobbying hard for Israeli allies, both new and old, to vote against it, or else abstain from voting altogether. Netanyahu has often boasted of his new diplomatic alliances as one of his biggest accomplishments as prime minister. Votes from those countries on this resolution, namely India, Argentina, Mexico, China, Kenya, and Rwanda, will be a clear test of those claims.
מדינת ישראל דוחה את ההצבעה הזאת על הסף, עוד לפני שהתקבלה. ירושלים היא בירתנו, נמשיך לבנות בה, ושגרירויות של מדינות, בראשן ארצות הברית, יעברו לירושלים. תרשמו מה שאמרתי, כי זה יקרה.
Well, the Israeli government has just unveiled a new plan to massively expand Jewish populations in the West Bank. The initiative would construct 3 new settlements in the Jordan Valley and expand existing Jewish neighborhoods behind the Green Line, thus adding a whopping 10,000 Jews to the region. ILTV's Aaron Porras is here with the details on this story.
Thank you, Natasha. And we have 14 new neighborhoods being slated to be placed across 3 different cities in the West Bank. And as you can imagine, as we have reported in similar cases, pro-settlement people are ecstatic while opponents are very much against it. So how does this affect the peace process right now? Well, the new housing is scheduled, it is slated for disputed territories in the West Bank, areas in B and C. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't exactly help the peace process. That being said, negotiations haven't been going on in years. And aside from that, you also have to take into account the fact that even if the idea of building new settlements is brought up, it doesn't exactly mean that it's set in stone. For example, just in 2017, 3,000 housing units for East Jerusalem and the West Bank were slated to be constructed. And of those, only 50 were actually given the tender to start building. That's a little over 1.5%. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, oh, this is going to happen all at once anyway. All right, well, let's check out the rest of the details in your report.
There are currently 4,500 Jewish residents in the Jordan Valley, which means this plan would triple that figure. Though this kind of expansion is exactly what many on the right have long been pushing for, critics say it's a massive and illegal theft of Palestinian-owned land. And many experts argue that by expanding Jewish presence further into disputed territory, it threatens the possibility for Palestinians to establish their own borders in any two-state solution someday. But for now, this new proposal is merely in the planning stages. Permits and budgets will need to be finalized and approved to get final green light. Givat Salit, Pitronot, and Given Eden have been earmarked as the sites for the proposed new settlements.
The Me Too movement has exposed dozens, if not hundreds, of horrific sex crimes and harassment in recent months. A new scandal has just exploded in the Jewish conservative world, exposing the longtime director of the movement's youth league. That man is Jules Gutin, who has been accused by dozens of alleged victims over the years for sexually abusing them as children. These are truly, truly horrific allegations made worse by the fact that some accusations date back over 3 decades ago. Gutin has just been terminated by the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism because their own investigation has shown these claims to be true. This unfortunately doesn't come as too much of a shock to some Jewish American leaders who first heard rumors of Gutin's alleged child sex abuse nearly 20 years ago. Gutin is accused of using his authority as a leader in the conservative Jewish youth movement to prey upon youth group participants. The first case allegedly happened when Gutin was 34 and the alleged victim was only 17. In light of the courage demonstrated by victims to speak out against abuse in the Me Too movement, many more men have since come forward claiming they too were sexually abused as youths under Gutin. Earlier this month, a leader from a chapter of the United Synagogue Youth was also terminated for a similar allegation of alleged sexual misconduct involving underage boys. Well, it looks like 9 new Nazi war crime suspects have just been turned over to German authorities. The head prosecutor has just confirmed that they are all alleged Nazi war criminals in their 90s who served as guards at death camps that were used to exterminate Jews in the Holocaust. The federal agency involved in IDing suspects doesn't have the authority to actually press charges. That's why all evidence has now been handed over to Germany's state prosecutor, who will determine if there's enough to press charges. Such cases have come to trial in Germany in the past. Legal precedent has typically ruled that guards present at concentration camps are in fact guilty of accessory to murder because they helped the camps operate during the mass killings. Details on these 9 new suspects are under wraps for now, but we've learned that they were all allegedly former Nazi guards stationed at Auschwitz, Mauthausen, Buchenwald, and the Ravensbrück concentration camps. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump has just granted clemency to Shalom Rubashkin, an Iowa slaughterhouse executive who was convicted to 27 years in prison for fraud. He has already served out 8 years, but now his sentence will be cut short and he will be released. Trump's decision has received bipartisan support, with many claiming that it doesn't make sense that Rubashkin's status as a nonviolent offender and father of 10 should give him a sentence, quote, longer than the median sentences for murder, kidnapping, sexual abuse, and child pornography. Joining us via Skype with some insight on the matter is Professor Alan Dershowitz, a renowned defense lawyer and author. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Professor, can you give us a quick overview of the case?
Rubashkin was convicted of fraud against a bank. The real problem was on sentencing, when the government manipulated the sale of the company to reduce its value, thereby increase the amount of time that he could be sentenced. So he got sentenced to an excessively unjust sentence. And for years now, we've been trying to get that sentence commuted to time served. I tried to do it with President Obama, but he wouldn't do it. And fortunately, I had the occasion to speak to President Trump personally, and I raised the case with him, and I presented it to him as a businessman, and he understood how the government manipulated the price of the company to increase the sentence, and he said he would like to do something about it, and he would have his people look into it. And now, months later, he finally did the right thing, the just thing. He did it on the last day of Hanukkah, and Rubashkin is now home with his family. There has been dancing in the streets of Brooklyn, of Lakewood, of you name it. It's a very happy day for the Chabad community and a very good day for justice.
You know, now that Trump has made this decision, what does this mean for future cases that are similar?
Well, there are no cases that are similar. This was a unique case. It doesn't mean that the president's going to have a policy of commuting sentences. This was a unique case. We had nearly 100 former prosecutors, Republicans and Democrats, pointing out the injustice of this case. We had senators and Congress people from both sides of the aisle pointing out the injustice. So this is not like many other cases. I hope the president has an open mind on all cases that come before him for pardon and commutation. This was not a pardon, by the way. It was a commutation. He already served 8 years. Now he's home with his family.
All right. Well, Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some updates on this case.
Thank you.
A 42-year-old Israeli woman has just given birth to her 20th child. Let me do some math for you. That means she's been pregnant for roughly 14 years of her life. Talk about being a professional mom. The woman took doctors by surprise as they prepared her for the birth when she calmly told them that this would be her 20th baby. Fortunately, the labor proceeded with no complications at all, and she's given birth to a new healthy baby boy. Now, for some people, the idea of 20 children under one roof sounds like quite an undertaking, but here in Israel, a house full of kids is actually par for the course. That's because this mom is an ultra-Orthodox woman from Jerusalem, which is why she was so excited for each and every birth, even after doing it 19 times already. By now, some of her children have actually already married and had kids of their own, so that's a lot of mouths to feed. But with that many kids, luckily, there's plenty of love and helping hands to go around. Wow. All right, archaeologists are always making major finds here in the Holy Land, but this one might take the cake. Archaeologists have just unearthed the ruins of an ancient church and monastery less than 20 miles from Jerusalem, one of the largest ever discovered in such good condition. It's at least 1,500 years old. The site is teeming with a treasure trove of ancient artifacts, some that have been traced to regions of ancient Turkey, others that may have come from nearby. But one of the biggest discoveries of all was right under everyone's feet, literally.
We uncovered amazing remains of a Byzantine monastic compound, including the church, the capella. Right now we're uncovering a beautiful mosaic floor. Upon the floor we have a pillar base out of marble. The decorative elements, the birds, the leaves, the colors are all rare elements. They show that the church enjoyed a great deal of wealth in ancient times. Often we only find little pieces of it, and we're uncovering it complete.
This excavation is a culmination of months of hard work, much of it done by teenage volunteers who donated their efforts tirelessly to unearth this ancient history. The find sheds new light on Byzantine-era life in the Holy Land and may even illuminate new theories on biblical stories as well.
Just south of us is the Elah Valley. That site is well known from the Battle of David and Goliath. Maybe they had a notion that this is the valley. All of this is speculation, but it's completely possible.
This discovery is definitely one for the history books, and just in time for the holidays. All right, well, it's happened to all of us before. We order something online and somehow our package gets lost in the mail or just doesn't arrive when it's supposed to. Well, joining us now is Ziv Fass, the co-founder and CEO of Package.ai, a company that is on a mission to make sure that that never happens again. I really hope it doesn't. Thank you so much for coming in.
Exactly.
So what does your company do?
So you know, like you described, you know, frustrating experiences with deliveries and services at home are, you know, very common, as we all know. So we are building basically artificial intelligence to solve that problem. And what we do is our system, from one hand, knows how to communicate with consumers and negotiate the right times to arrive. Show you kind of where the driver is every step of the way, let you make last-minute changes.
That's nice.
All through text messaging, of course, and allow you to provide feedback at the end. And so that is, you know, a better experience for the users. And now our system basically crunches through this information of the feedback loop. And makes the operation more and more optimized and efficient.
And it's funny, this seems like, I mean, clearly what you're doing is not basic, but there is a basic need for this to happen, because I can tell you from my own personal experience living in Israel, just ordering something from abroad can be such a nightmare.
Exactly.
So, I mean, how did you come up with this idea? Was there an experience? Or?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I was living in the United States for 10 years before actually moving back to Israel 2 years ago, and I bought a laptop, you know, online, and basically UPS kind of, you know, put the note on the door, the dreaded note on the door 3 times. So that was kind of the moment of instantiation of the idea, and then, you know, after that I kind of studied the field and saw that there's such a huge opportunity to
Well, absolutely, you know. There's definitely a need for this here. So is the platform already available? Is it working?
Yeah, so we have we're kind of in the initial stages, but we have live and pilot customers in a few countries around the world. So you know, anywhere from Sydney, Australia, to the Netherlands, UK, as well as Israel. So yeah, it's kind of
very cool.
It's out there.
So what is next for the platform? Do you have any?
So you know, we're kind of again in the initial stage. So you know, more customers, more data through the system, and really getting, you know, the efficiency into it, and really the data-driven sort of results.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I really hope that your solution ends this issue, because I don't want to be dealing with the mail services in Israel any longer. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Get ready to have your mind blown, because Israeli doctors have just done the impossible. For the first time in history, medical experts have just regrown part of a missing human bone inside the patient's body. It's not science fiction anymore. This is real life. An Israeli man named Denny has just become the first patient ever to have a missing bone replaced with this revolutionary new procedure. Part of Denny's shin bone was removed earlier this year after a terrible car accident, a hole that Israeli doctors in Israel's Haimek hospital have just literally regrown. Doctors sampled some fat cells from Denny's body, then grew them in a special bioreactor that simulated the body's natural conditions. By isolating certain cells, this actually allowed them to generate new bone particles, which could then be injected back into the patient's body and then joined together to give Denny a fully formed, shiny new shin bone. Now, this procedure is obviously a landmark breakthrough that could treat all kinds of problems. Doctors say it could even be used someday to make people taller if they want. In a few weeks, Danny can take his first steps on his regrown shin bone, but doctors say he should be just like new in no time at all. All right. Well, did you know that the world's oldest tattoo parlor is located here in Israel? For generations now, the Razook family has been offering incredible tattoo art from Jerusalem. And this year, they've been getting some very special customers, Christian pilgrims, who have traveled thousands of miles to get holy tattoos featuring the Jerusalem cross, just in time for Christmas. For anyone who isn't familiar with the Razook family's amazing tattoos, it's an art form hundreds of years in the making, passed down from generation to generation.
My family has been doing tattoos for the past 700 years. 500 years we've been doing tattoos in the Holy Land, and before that 200 years in Egypt.
The family's Coptic Christian roots originally used the tattoos as religious symbols. Traditionally, the cross would be branded upon the wrist, a style that has been somewhat adapted for modern times, especially now that the internet has popularized the Razook family's work. That's how Christian pilgrims found their work in the first place, and one big reason why they're spending this Christmas here in the Holy Land.
If there's one thing I thought I would never do is get a tattoo, unless I was uproariously drunk or something and would immediately regret it. But I just stumbled upon the website for Razook, and I learned about the history of his family, and then I saw some of the old wooden blocks, and just learned about the pilgrims that had been here before and down the centuries, and I was just really taken by it.
It's good to remember that, yes, a tattoo is forever, but as the shop's owner Wasim Razook points out, sometimes that's a good thing.
I don't see anything wrong with religious markings. Actually, on the contrary, I think if somebody wants to get a tattoo, the best thing to do is to get a religious tattoo. That is something that you will never regret. That is something that you will never want to change.
And for these pilgrims exploring the streets of Jerusalem, many for the first time, this is truly a Christmas holiday they'll always remember. Well, for the 29th year in a row, the Room Dancers Festival is being held in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And joining us now is Dorothea Roos, a visual performance artist and dancer who will be taking part in this year's event. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
So tell us first a little bit about this festival.
As you said, it's the 29th edition, and it's a festival that really adds, I would say, to presenting dance work in general, in that sense that it's emphasizing the intimacy more between the viewer and the performer, and also more presenting solo work and small ensembles.
Very interesting. So you're going to be performing. Can you tell us what you're going to be performing?
We are showing a new work. I mean, I'm also a performance artist, which means I'm not reproducing the same work all the time. I'm always creating new work.
Right.
It's always in the moment also, but very much planned. And this time, this work, we will be working with Skype. We will do 2 live performances. One will happen in Jaffa, Tel Aviv, and the other, the co-performer, Omri Ziegler, which is a musician, will be in Zurich in a performance space.
Very interesting.
And we will interact through Skype. And it will be 2 live performances with audience, and we will perform with each other.
Well, I think that's going to be interesting to see how the internet connection, functions for you, right?
Well, that's the big thing, because it's not just us, it's also the media specialists that are involved. It's not a high-end media game. It's really, we really work with Skype, which is low-key, if you want. And it's prone to make maybe an interruption. So we have to kind of work with that.
Is this your first time in Israel performing?
No, I was at the Room Dance Festival in 2001, and I was in Israel in 1977, traveling around, also as a travel agent. I was working at that time. And I was in Israel in 2013 at another performance art festival, at the Tzaz Festival.
Okay, so you know Israel pretty well at this point, it
Well,
seems.
I can't say that I know Israel well, but I mean, it's always, each time it's an encounter, and I think it's very interesting here. You know,
a little different than Switzerland. So here's my question for you. When can people come and watch your show?
Tomorrow, Friday evening, door opens at 8. The show is at 8:30. You can make reservations through the website or Room Dances, through Facebook, and
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Dorothea.
Okay, thanks.
All right, up now, ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here to give us the top 5 winter activities to do in the Holy Land.
So I guess you could say it's winter here in the Holy Land. I mean, if you consider 65 degrees winter, then yes, we are most definitely in the winter season. So with that, here are the top 5 winter activities to do in Israel. At number 1 is skiing at Mount Hermon. This might sound absurd to do after I told you that it's currently 65 degrees outside, but it's true. If enough snow falls, the northern tip of the country is where you can find it. Rising 9,230 feet above sea level, the vertical drop at Mount Hermon is 1,552 feet, making it ideal for skiers. And for those like me who are less coordinated, no worries. Tubing and sledding are available as well. At number 2 is the Sounds of Winter Festival located in Jerusalem, this year promising endless colorful celebrations of Israeli modern culture. Live performances, art exhibits, film screenings, and cooking classes are all offered here as well. The Sounds of Winter Festival gives you colorful and energetic view of the city of Jerusalem, so I wouldn't miss it if I were you. At number 3 is for all our Christian tourists out there. The Holy Land is one of the best places to celebrate 2 important winter holidays, Hanukkah and Christmas. Christmas festivities can be found all over the country, starting off at the Holiday of Holidays in Haifa. Then make sure to check out the biggest Christmas tree in Nazareth and go explore all the Christian sites of Jerusalem. Best of both worlds. At number 4 on our list is Eilat. For those looking to get away from the oh-so-torturous winter weather in Tel Aviv, a 4-hour drive or a quick 1-hour flight will take you down to Eilat, where the Red Sea Jazz Festival takes place every winter and the water itself doesn't get below 70 degrees. So snorkeling, diving, swimming, and kite surfing are all on the table. Definitely worth the scenic drive down. At number 5, we have the Feelin' Blues Dance Festival in Tel Aviv. Get ready to get down and have fun, because you definitely don't need experience to join. Professional dancers are there to perform, so you're welcome to watch from the side. But for those looking to learn, they also run a cool training day dance workshop. Nothing wrong with letting your hair down and having some fun, right? That's all for today's Top 5. Back to you.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. It's Christmas season, and in honor of the holiday, lots of people are heading to the world's oldest tattoo shop in Jerusalem, which has been tattooing Christian pilgrims for the last 500 years. So today's word is kakua, which means tattoo in Hebrew. Now, you may love them or you may hate them, but the fact is a whole lot of people have kakuim or tattoos. In fact, 1 in every 5 people has a kakua. Reports even claim the tattoos are more common than ever in 2017. In Judaism, tattoos are forbidden since the Torah dictates against making any gashes in the flesh or marks on the body. Coptic Christians, on the other hand, have traditionally marked their wrists with the kakua of a cross. Traditions are different in different religions, but make sure if you do decide to go get a kakua yourself, be safe. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight, the winter heat wave continues with a low of 61 or 16 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, there should be little to no change in the weather, but over the weekend, you can expect temperatures to finally drop a bit. The high will sit at about 80 or 27 degrees Celsius.